Hello, young friends. You must have heard of all this for the last 4 or 5 days. First, it was 300 flights. Then, it was 400 flights. Then, it was 500 flights. And then, it went on to 1,000 flights cancelled in a single day by Indigo. Lakhs and lakhs of passengers have been struck in stranded in airports across India. They have missed marriages, they have missed appointments, they have missed business meetings, they have missed connecting flights to overseas destinations, and God knows what else. What Indigo has done can, by any sense of common decent behavior, be described as actually not capitalism but dacoity. This is outright dacoity. सबसे आश्चर्य की बात है that this has been brewing for a large number of years. Indigo now controls close to 65% of the market share of the domestic air traffic. The rest, most of it is controlled by Air India, and a small bit is controlled by SpiceJet and other airlines like Akasa. So, what Indigo has done is actually held India to ransom, Indian air travelers to ransom, and the Indian government to ransom. Even worse, the government of India seems to have surrendered to the blackmail of Indigo. And friends, if this is capitalism, then God save and God help capitalism. इसका अंदाजा बहुत पहले से हो चुका था. I think most of you are not aware of a small incident which happened about 2 years ago in November 2023. There was a flight from Amritsar to Chennai with a stopover in Bangalore. What happened? The flight took off, it landed in Bangalore, and suddenly there were 6 elderly passengers who had booked their flights to Chennai. They were told by the Indigo staff that an alternate flight is being arranged for them, and they disembarked. And lo and behold, after they got down from the aircraft, they were told that for the entire night there is no aircraft to fly to Chennai and that they had to spend the night at the airport. That is what Indigo was even 2 years ago. It has been like that consistently. And even then, at that time, the so-called regulator of the Indian skies, the Director General of Civil Aviation, which is supposed to protect the interests of passengers and their safety, did not bother to punish Indigo adequately for its cruel and callous behavior towards fully paid 6 elderly passengers. And why? Because there were just 6 passengers on the flight from Bangalore to Chennai. So Indigo decided that, well, it's not worth spending the money. Now, that kind of brazen behavior has eventually landed us in the phase between 3rd of December 2025 to 7th of December. Today, when I'm speaking, it is 8th of December and the cancellations are still going on, passengers are still stranded. Why is this happening? This is happening, as I mentioned, because Indigo has a stranglehold over the Indian aviation market. I think most of you would be aware that once the private sector was allowed into aviation, like in the telecom sector, there has been a massive boom in air traffic. The number of aspirational Indians who have started taking to the skies has multiplied manifold. Look at the chart which is visible on your screen. So even about 12, 13 years ago, the total number of passengers flying within India was just about 58 million or 60 million. Today, it is more than 162 million. In fact, every day, more than 5 lakh Indians are traveling by air within India. I'm not even talking about the international flights. And this kind of growth has been explosive year after year, barring, as you can see in the chart, the years when the COVID pandemic had affected everything. Now, when growth like this happens, naturally there should be more players to capitalize on this growing market. Unfortunately, in the Indian aviation industry, we have had a series of airlines which have been launched since 1993 and have died along the way. First, there was an East West Airlines whose managing director was shot dead in broad daylight by mafia gunmen. Then we had a tiny airline called Damania, which was absorbed by the then newly launched Jet Airways. Then you had Sahara Airlines, which was also eventually absorbed by Jet Airways. Then you had Air Deccan, which actually revolutionized air traffic by offering no frills and low cost airfares. Air Deccan, unfortunately, was also taken over by Kingfisher Airlines. Kingfisher Airlines was the pet project of Vijay Mallya, the absconding tycoon who is fighting an extradition case against Indian authorities in England. Kingfisher Airlines also died, and the worst blow came when a flourishing, at least outwardly flourishing, Jet Airways also crashed and collapsed in 2018. Since then, the stranglehold and the virtual monopoly of Indigo on the Indian aviation sector has been strengthened. And look at the performance and the journey of Indian aviation in the private sector since the early 90s. You can see mafia, you can see crony behavior, you can see thuggery, you can see loot and plunder, you can see everything except comfort, safety, and convenience for the passengers. And this particular chart that you will see will indicate how Indigo has increased its stranglehold over the market. It started with less than 30% of the market share when Kingfisher Airlines was still around. And then it increased. And then it increased further when Jet Airways also collapsed. And it reached a stage in 2024 when the market share of Indigo was about 65%. Friends, this kind of behavior would not be acceptable in any civilized society. And I'm not talking about just arbitrarily cancelling flights without any notice to passengers. It was the atrocious behavior of Indigo by not even supplying a simple bottle of water. Forget about refreshments, alternate flights, or even hotel bookings. Not even a single bottle of plain simple water was provided to the stranded passengers. And look at it this way, in the financial year 2024-25, the gross revenue, the total revenue of Indigo was more than rupees 80,000 crores. क्या ये शर्म और लानत की बात नहीं है? An 80,000 crore rupees company cannot or actually does not bother to supply even a bottle of drinking water to stranded passengers. Even worse is the state of the regulator DGCA. The DGCA has de facto surrendered. It has allowed Indigo Airlines to go back to the old norms of flying till February as a one time gesture. Now, in the old days, the number of hours worked by the pilot and crew were very high in India compared to global norms. That was changed in 2024. Airlines wanted more time, it was extended to 2025. Then in July, they wanted more time, it was again extended till October 2025. And then Indigo decided, it seems, that even then it cannot comply with these new norms and this complete mayhem. What can the DGCA do now? It sent a notice to Indigo The notice was not replied, and as of 8th of December today, it seems that another extension has been given to Indigo. For how long will this go on? If this kind of capitalism is encouraged in India, then not just Indian consumers, even the Indian economy does not have a very bright future. For a much more detailed video and similar videos, do watch Chai with Current.